Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to our conference series, the talk number 3. Thank you for joining this talk that is hosted by Soap Cycling, and our conference series are funded by the Sustainable Development Fund of Hong Kong. We have already gone through our first talk about circular economy and waste management in Hong Kong with Tim Parker, and our second one was about food waste with Light Blue Environmental Consulting. If you have missed those, we will be happy to share them with you. They are at the moment available on our YouTube, so you can go and watch them whenever you feel like. And today we have our talk number 3 about plastic waste and the innovations happening in this space to help the hospitality industry and others to get rid of this item. And today we will have Devana from Distinctive Action introducing their innovation. Hello, welcome.
Hi, Lucia.
Sorry. Yes, hello, Devana. Oh, there you are.
Hi, yeah, here I am. Thank you so much for inviting us again. So this is Devana from Distinctive Action, and also launching Invisible Bag this year. And I'm so happy to be here and share with everyone like what is plastic waste, how did we start Distinctive Action, and what is Invisible Bag, and also as an individual, like what could we achieve to like sustainable living.
Thank you, Devana, for taking the time. So I'm really curious to hear about your journey, how you actually happened to start this innovative process of developing an invisible bag, a water-soluble bag, and how it actually works. So the floor is yours. I'd like to hear all that you have to say to introduce us to the invisible bag.
Yeah, so let us quickly talk about how did we start Distinctive Action as like a personal motivation. Okay, so actually it all starts from the nature, because like back to 2018, me and my husband Flavien, we are a nature lover. We love hiking. And so we went to different places in Hong Kong for hiking and trail running. But unfortunately, we saw a lot of trash were found in the mountains. So here are 2 pictures that is exactly, we took it on a mountain. And as you could see, there's like plastic bottles, there's like energy bars, and like all these is plastic packaging. So we start to think about what could we do as an individual, and also like what could we do. The most important thing is like we need to reduce and source. And also as a personal, as an individual, we start popping as well. We always like found a plastic bag in the mountain, so we took it and also like pick up different trash and put it. When we went down on the mountain, we will go for recycling. And of course, right now we have invisible bag. We'll definitely take invisible bag, go for like picking some trash. This is how we did how we do like every weekend. But the most important thing is like how to reduce the source, because as you could see, like those plastic packaging is a manufacturer, when they're manufacturing a product, they also have a packaging come with it. So we start to do some research in 2018. And as you could see here for the numbers, actually the top 3 solid waste that dispose in the landfill every year. First one is a food waste. Second one is a paper. Third one is a plastic. So you could see that plastic, there's 2,343 tons per day are disposed in the landfill. So you might question like, okay, so like how many, how heavy is that? Actually, is equal to 101 double-decker bus that you could see on the street in Hong Kong. That's pretty a lot of trash that we created every single day. As you could see that like really a lot of like trash, but what's inside and how did we start, like why we come up with invisible bag? Actually, as you could see that in this big chart, it's like every day we dispose all the trash, and like what are they? There's plastic bag, as you could see, like there's a lot, but the number 1 is stretch film. What is it? It's like when you buy electronic, when you buy home appliances, there's always a poly bag coming to it. When there's like shipping, there's like a big plastic wrapping the pallets. Then the second one is plastic bags that we consume when you go for bakery, when you go for supermarket, all these things that is daily usage. But then of course, because of the pandemic, you will see a lot of polyfoam dining wares like plastic boxes and stuff like that. So when we look into the numbers, we saw like, wow, actually there's a lot of plastic packaging, especially films that being consumed every day and disposed because people will not go for recycling and they are not going to a proper waste management. So we are thinking of doing like, we should bring an alternative solution to manufacturers and brands to replace the plastic packaging. So we start to do some research. We go to different places. We have been to Japan, Indonesia, Taiwan, and also Europe to see what the product is already existing that we could promote to more people to replace the plastic. So at the end of the day, we come up Invisible Bag that is launched and published, commercialized it in this year by May time. And maybe some of the people joining this sharing today, you might see it on some of the media. And in the coming up slides, I will be sharing a little bit more what is Invisible Bag. So as said earlier, we started this research back to 2018. And in 2019, I quit my job and really go for like searching different materials. And by 2020, February, in the middle of the COVID, we started our company, and by May, we start to commercialize Invisible Bag. So in my question about like, okay, what is Invisible Bag? It looks like plastic bag, but is it really a plastic bag? Okay, so it's made of like a biodegradable combination, is polyvinyl alcohol. We call it as a PVA. But it's not like the only ingredient of a bag. It's like when you go for chicken hot pot, you still have like onion, garlic, and then the chicken. Same for this one, you need to have like polyvinyl alcohol and then a plant-based starch, glycerin, and water. But then is it we invented it? No, this material has been existing for 100 years already. So back to 1920s, it's invented by German scientists. But then until 1950s, it was start to commercialize it by a Japanese company. And so it's mostly used for capsule coating. When you digest a capsule, it will be like the medicine will be dissolved in your stomach. It's the same material. Of course, capsule coating, there's different grading. It's also used for contact lenses, glue, or right now you will see a lot of like laundry detergent pot. And also the mostly being used back to 1950s until right now is embroidery and garment industry for the knitwear. And it's also being used as an agriculture film that will be biodegrade in the soil and convert back to carbon dioxide and water. So this material has been used for many different applications, has been used for many years, but right now we see like, oh, this material is already existing. Why don't we promote it and make more people realize that there is an alternative solution is there, we can use it, and we could replace plastic. Later on, I will be sharing the video with everyone, like how to dissolve Invisible Bag in water. But this material is completely dissolved in water. And also is like compostable, biodegradable. When we are talking about compostable, it must be biodegradable. But when you talk about biodegradable materials, it doesn't mean that compostable. So when we talk about this material is compostable or biodegradable, it has to be certified. And it has to be converted back to carbon dioxide and water. The most important elements is by the microorganism. So by the action of it, it will convert and break down into carbon dioxide and water, which will not form microplastic as well. So this is definitely a game changer and also as an alternative solution to replace plastic. And today we're so happy that we are coming up with different applications. So as you can see, we have like a shopping bag for daily usage, mostly is for F&B because we want to target to brands and manufacturers to replace those takeaway bags. And also some of the shops that is like, sometimes they have no choice that they need to give a bag. So they could go for, instead of plastic bag, they could give invisible bag. And also, for example, like when it's come with like a garment industry, when you're manufacturing a clothes, even in the store, you might not see the bag, but actually once they manufacture and deliver to the shop, it has to come up with a bag. So we want to replace that and bring a solution to the brands. So right now we are very happy that we have over like 70 different fashion brands locally in Hong Kong. They're using invisible bag to replace the plastic poly bag. And so we are also doing the other bags, for example, laundry bag, poly bag, and also Grippo bag. And here are two examples because our bags is fully customizable. If some of you would love to buy mooncake, you probably know La Lune, this mooncake brand in Hong Kong. They are using our bag. We customize it, the invisible bag. We did a collaboration. So when you go to pick up your mooncake, you could choose like either you go for paper bag, but at the same time you have a choice to go for invisible bag to replace the plastic. And today we are very happy that we have different F&B restaurants are using that. So this invisible bag is water soluble. So it means that it's very sensitive to water. So it doesn't mean, it cannot be like every restaurant could use that. For example, if you're running a ramen shop, you're running a congee shop, you might not be, invisible bag might not be suitable for you. But there is still a lot of things that we could replace it, can use it. For example, if you're running a restaurant doing like burger, salad, all these things, sushi, dry items, barbecue, invisible bag is definitely suitable for you. Or bakery or cake shop, here is a choice for you to replace the plastic. And even in terms of the carbon footprint, comparing to a paper bag that is very heavy and bulky and occupying space in terms of the logistic, one container, let's say if you have to carry the paper bag and carry invisible bag, is talking about like 2-3 times more you can carry invisible bag than a paper bag. And also, as said earlier, because it's like hydrophilic, so putting dry items is definitely recommend you to put it. So we have lots of fashion brands are already using invisible bag to replace the plastic bags. So what's next? Invisible bag is the first item that we have, but we are not going to stop over it because the thing is like plastic waste. We could see it in the daily, especially in the pandemic. We saw a lot of single-use items. You can choose not to buy clothing, you can choose not to buy accessory, but there's one thing you would definitely need to buy is food. Food, if you buy frozen food, it will definitely come with a plastic packaging. You cannot avoid, it's a necessary evil. So we want to work with a local R&D to bring up more or develop more sustainable packaging, which is plastic-free, compostable, biodegradable, which is the most important DNA of a packaging, to replace the plastic and for frozen food or any F&B packaging. Because if tomorrow when you buy a food and it comes with like not a plastic packaging, you won't feel guilty to the environment because the most important thing is you consume a food. You don't want to leave a plastic that will stay here for 1,000 years, that will never like biodegrade, and it will even create a microplastic issue. But if you buy a food and then it will not create an issue and it go like the afterlife is back to zero, and that's the most ideal case that we want to bring up to. So I'm very happy to be here to share quickly what is invisible bag and like what is distinctive fashion and how did we come up with that idea.
Thank you, Devana, for sharing the information about your innovation. Now, I have a question or two for you. But also would like to already invite the audience to feel free to put down the questions in the chat for us and for Devana specifically, since she is here, and I will be happy to share that with the larger audience. So start thinking about the questions that you have for Devana about the innovation, whatever comes to your mind. My colleague Eliana is also here, so she can help out to register those questions. So you can just put them down already, even if there are many of them. We're gonna go through all of them, don't worry, they won't be lost. So Eliana's gonna take care of that. So my question for you, Devana, so it's fascinating to see there's something actually that dissolves into water. Now, my question is, so how does it actually affect me as a consumer? For instance, what if I take a bag and it starts raining? I'm bringing my mooncake back home, then it starts pouring. Will the bag dissolve in my hands? What's going to happen?
Okay, so let's begin another way. If like when it's a sunny day, you will put your sunglasses. When it's a rainy day, you will put your umbrella. You will not leave your bag outside and like let the rain drops on the bag. If it's a little bit of shower, definitely no problem. But you talk about like today, like heavy raining, thunderstorm, you will protect your bag, you will protect your mooncake and not to get wet. Same as like the usage of the paper bag. But then, of course, like if it's a heavy shower or putting heavy, like very wet items, would definitely not recommend it, because the most important things to make this bag dissolve is water. So if you are in touch with like a normal cold or temperature water, it will be dissolved as well, but as a very slower rate. So what we suggest, like even when we work with restaurant, we suggest like depends on the situation, you can adapt to it and giving different options to the people as to the end users. So, but at the other day, like if you see the bag could be dissolved in under the rain, it means that in the nature environment, it could be dissolved as well, because the day is raining and then in the soil there is like there is moisture. It will definitely, because of the microorganism, it will be biodegrade. Instead of plastic, will be staying there for like long time.
Right. Thank you. So we've got some questions already pouring in. Thank you very much for the audience. So I'm going to go one by one with them. Got one privately sent, which says, what's the cost compared to conventional plastic bag? What is the difference between getting your bags and the conventional plastic bags?
Okay, the most important thing is like when we look at is the afterlife of a product, because plastic bag will be, I think everyone knows that, especially in the pandemic, trigger the ideas like, oh, plastic is a big issue. It stays there for 100 years and 1,000 years. It will never degrade. I mean, it would degrade, but like really taking a long time. And what should we do with that? Because we have limited of space and like a waste management issue. Then invisible bag, I could tell you in terms of cost for long term is cheaper than a plastic, because the afterlife, you have a choice to dissolve it in water, and in a couple of seconds back you to can zero, convert it, which is a plastic bag would not. So if talking about like that, plastic bag is very cheap. I mean, if it's talk about like cost, plastic bag is very cheap because it has been used for like 50 years. More like the demand, the supply that you have, cost is cheap. And invisible bag right now is about 3 times more expensive, like 2 to 3 times more expensive than a plastic bag. But as said, after life, you can choose it and back to zero, and you don't have to waste, I mean, occupy the space of a landfill. And then the afterlife issue is like zero.
Right. That might be specifically important if we gonna ever get to the charging scheme for the waste produced by the businesses and individuals. So I have other questions. Oops, I don't know what's going on in here. I get this messed up a little bit, but Dana is asking, what happens if the invisible bag ends up in the marine or terrestrial environment? So if you don't dissolve it, I think we didn't really go through like how it actually dissolves in the water. So maybe you can run us through the process of when does it dissolve in the water, and what happens with it if it ends up in a normal environment without being put inside the water.
Okay, so of course the best way is like invisible bag is offering an end user a choice that you can dissolve the bag in hot water by like completely dissolve in water. Talk about like a couple of seconds. Even you wait for a couple of minutes, it will be dissolved completely. And after you put down the drain, the wastewater will go back to the sewage treatment facility, and by the microorganism, it convert back to H2O and CO2, which is the best ideal case. But then invisible bag is not only water soluble because it's also compostable and biodegradable. So when it's go to the natural environment, which is not the best ideal case if we like dispose it in the nature, or by accident like typhoon, it goes to the nature. The most important thing is microorganism. By the action of microorganism, they eat it. It's like you leave a burger in a forest or in a soil. By having like a lot of bugs, it would eat it up and it will biodegrade. Same for the bag. So instead of a plastic, because back to chemical like polychain is too strong. It will never degrade, but our bags is made with like biodegradable combination, which is PVA, starch, glycerin, and water. And then it will be talking about like shorten the time, like a year or two, depends on the soil, the moisture, and different parameters. It will be like biodegrade.
Okay. We've got a question from Cora as well. And she asked, for the ice cream packaging and film packaging, are you exploring to use PVA as well, or are you exploring other materials?
This is a very good question for food packaging. Right now, we understood that food packaging is a necessary evil. You cannot deny it. You cannot avoid it. Even you try to reduce plastic packaging, there is still something that we have to use it. So PVA is a hydrophilic polymer, but back to it is a synthetic polymer, which is very sensitive to water. We can change the combination or composition or the percentage, but it still have its function of like a hydrophilic. So we are looking into developing another material which is not made with PVA, which is made with another material that we need to complete, is a totally new material to replace the frozen food, for example, ice cream or anything that you might think of as like a frozen food. So since this material is completely new, we need to work with R&D. We hopefully by the time project time, like a time frame will be like 2 years.
Okay. We've got another question also from Dana, like how slow does the bag dissolves in cold water? Do you have you done any tests? Do you know how long it takes if it's not a hot water environment?
Okay, this is a very good question. It also depends in what kind of environment and also like how many water. For example, if you just have a glass of water, small like that, put it at home with a big bag like this, I could tell you like it takes a while and also depends on the temperature. But is a normal testing, it talk about like 3 to 4 months. But the most important thing is like microorganism. If it's a normal type, like a glass of water, it will not have that much microorganism, but back to in the nature environment, it will have a lot that will be like decomposed and biodegrade faster.
Mm-hmm. We've got other questions about the certification and whether you have any sort of test report showing the PVA that you're using is compostable or not.
Okay, good question. When you claim a product that is compostable and biodegradable, it has to be certified by a couple of standards. The most common one that you will see is the American and European standard. American one, which is ASTM D6400. The European one, which is EN 13432. So when you export to the other country, you have to get that certification. But based on our bag, we also get another one, which is the JBPA, Green PLA, which is an association in Japan that is talk about is biodegradability. So all these certification, it has to go for, when they do the testing, actually is like simulate the situation of industrial composting facilities. It has to be in 180 days, 90% of the material has to convert it back to carbon dioxide and water. So this is talk about compostability. And biodegradability, which is the JBPA, Japan Association, it has to be in a natural environment by the microorganism. It also converted back to carbon dioxide and water. So both is like all the residuals is not microplastic, but back to like the necessary and essential elements in the nature and the ecosystem.
All right. So I think that kind of also responds to the other questions about the degradability of the bags in the landfill and anaerobic environment. So because it degrades in a normal environment, even in the nature, by the microorganisms that will essentially decompose it. And you mentioned that would take, based on the certification, it should take up to maximum 90 days, right? That's
180 days.
180 days. Okay. So I think we have answered Matawi and then June and also others here. Also, we have gone through already the cost compared to the current plastic bag. So when you think about the cost right now, yes, it's more expensive, but when you think about the long-term cost and the impact on the environment, it's cheaper. Also, I think one of the strategies that is really good that we have heard from other producers of biodegradable materials, whenever they work with customers, essentially they don't really tell them only to buy this product and to forget about the issue of the single-use item, but rather they teach them in the process and tell them, look, you can also decrease the amount of bags you give out. So if now you give your bag every time that somebody makes a purchase, why don't you make it an option? And essentially you can do that with straws and other non-essential things that people could actually have a replacement of their own bag. So why don't you encourage, and then generally you will decrease the amount of bags you give out. So even though the item is more expensive, at the end of the day, you might be actually spending the same amount as a business for that item to be better for the environment finally, because you're just using less of it.
I think I totally agree with you. And also there's another two aspects that I would like to input. And it's like, back to 50 years ago, actually plastic is more expensive than a glass. Remember those days that you went to like 7-Eleven when you buy a milk bottle, it always comes with a glass, not a plastic bottles like today. But because of the demand, also because people looking for conveniency, plastic has its big demand. So of course the supply will be cheaper. Hopefully by like more people aware of like we have an alternative solution, and by having more people using this water soluble material, more demand, it will be same issue. Same case as like plastic long time back. More demand it is, more supply it is, and the cost will be cheaper. We hopefully can lower down the cost for sure. And the second thing is like, I think not only our company, but most of the company who are offering like biodegradable materials, the most important thing for a brand to adopt to use a new material or like an eco-friendly material is not only, we should not focusing on only cost, but also is like bringing a choice to a customer. It also bring an added value to your brand that you take an action to care about our mother nature, also giving a choice to our customer that you're part of the movement, but not only talking about cost, which is like most of the people only care about it. We should have a long, have a vision to see how further it could go, and also the product afterlife.
Right. So we've got a few more questions, so I'm going to go through them. So we've got a question. Any calculation on the carbon dioxide emission compared to the decomposition of the packaging alternatives? Do you have any data on that?
You mean alternative of like comparing with our bags and with other bags, right?
Yeah, I would say so.
We have like similar, for example, carbon dioxide or not carbon dioxide, sorry, like a carbon footprint when it comes with a logistic. We have similar data, but when you talk about manufacturing, we don't have like an exact numbers because we are still evaluated. And there is nobody has been doing this kind of tests, and also like it's not like it's a big supply in the market for this material yet, so we don't have an exact calculation. But let's say comparing with like a paper bag, as in terms of carbon footprint, actually we are lower than the paper bag, because paper bag, even the feedback from our partners who are at F&B a restaurant, they said that like a paper bag is too bulky, too heavy. Let's say a carton box, you can only put 200 bags of paper bag, but ours, like a same carton box, we can put like 1,500 or 2,000. So in terms of the logistic, you can deliver more bags and in a container as well. So we should look into different aspects as well.
Right. So we've got one clarification on the biodegradability, I guess. That's like bogging everybody's mind here. And so when you said about biodegradability, do you mean, so those 180 days, that's biodegradability in an industrial composter or in the nature freely? Do you know the difference between the two processes? What would be biodegradability of your bag in a facility that is industrial composter, and what that would be if it just ended up in, let's say, the sea or just in the nature?
Okay, so let's talk about the compostability first. Compostability, we have the certification. As said earlier, when a product is compostable, it will definitely biodegradable. But a product biodegradable, it doesn't mean that it's compostable. It means that you cannot put in the home composting bins or industrial composting facilities. So our products is like in a composting facility, in an industrial one, which is talk about the degrees is about 50 to 60. Mostly Hong Kong, we don't have it, but the other countries in US or in Europe, they will have it. Is like 180 days, 90% of the material, it has to be converted back to carbon dioxide and water. So when it's come to biodegradability, if you goes to a nature environment, actually there's a lot of parameters. It will affect the time to biodegrade a bag. For example, the pH value of a soil, the moisture, the humidity, and like most of moisture and humidity, and also the temperature. So let's say if it's in Europe or in US, comparing to Hong Kong or Southeast Asia, the time to biodegrade a product, it will be different. Even you put wood in a soil, a wood will not be biodegraded in a week because it takes time for the microorganism to have that action to do it. So we right now, we don't have like an exact time frame to biodegrade a bag. We are still simulating the case, but we're definitely sure that the bag is biodegraded in the nature environment because we have the test and certification. And also we would love to add up like one more certification that we have been doing. We need to make sure the bag is non-toxic after dissolving into any other like stream. Is like non-toxic, it's not going to harmful to the environment. So this is what we make sure that the bag is safe to use.
Right. So I think that kind of explains. So if it's put in a composter, industrial composter, that's 180 days, 90% of it has to be gone. If it's ended up in a different environment, so it's like blown away or it's in a regular landfill, then there's lots of parameters that will play role in here because it really depends on the humidity and other factors. So say in the rainy season that probably, and it ends up on the top, might be much faster than in like a dry season, right? Or if there is more humidity at that moment.
Yeah, totally correct.
Okay, I got that. Anybody else has any questions here in the chat room? We still welcome that, but what I want to do anyways, if there's no more questions, of course, feel free to still send in your questions if you have any. And I know that Devana is very passionate about decreasing the waste, so not only replacing the plastic bags. So we don't want to give an impression that, you know, just buying this bag or getting this bag, as we said, would solve the problem. It's really about the reduction. So if we can, we should reduce. And if we cannot reduce, then we might look into alternative options that hopefully will be okay for the environment and for the people as well. But Devana has, because you've heard that the company's name is Distinctive Action. So her and her husband who ran the company and wanted to make a distinctive action by bringing a material or product that would make that difference in the problem of plastic. But she would like to share with you some advice on how to reduce or how to make a distinctive action in other aspects as well. So I'll let Devana run you through those few suggestions on how to make a distinctive action in your choices. And while you still can put your questions in the chat, we can go back to them later.
Yeah, sure. I totally agree with what Lucy has said. It's like we come up with an invisible bag. It's not like encouraging you to use this one forever, and then it's kind of like a fight against the plastic crisis. This one, don't forget that it's like we aim to bring it to manufacturers or retailers. That one you have no choice. It's necessary that you have to use packaging. Right now you have an alternative solution, a better one that you could replace it. But the most important thing is is reduce at source. So we come up with a solution, but as an individual, we could take some like actions like to reduce the plastic packaging as well. So what could we do is like back before, like I was like still eating meat because right now me and my husband, like we are vegan. So when we're like going to the wet market, like you need to buy meat, they will always come up with a plastic bag. But at that time, I was already like reusing the plastic bag. I bought my own reusable container in glass. I would say that, okay, you cut the meat and you put it in a container. At the end of the day, when you're back home, you will still wash the meat and you will wash the container. There is no problem. But I think this is a small little change that you could bring up too. But for sure, today, all the examples that I'm showing up, there is more than that, that just show it in the PowerPoint, because I do believe that we should learn from others, and there's many other ways that we could reduce the plastic consumption as well. So what's the other things that we could do? Thank you to Miu Miu that created the recycled toilet paper. So right now, it's like we change all the toilet paper to use this one. And then instead of going to like, we reduce the consumption or going to the supermarket, we try our best to go to the wet market, buying the local vegetables, buying the local food that is not pre-packed. I think that's one of the way that you can reduce the plastic consumption. And second thing is like, I think we stopped using toothpaste in tube for a while. And then we bought buying the toothpaste tablets. So you bite it. I think at the beginning you might find it a little bit weird, but definitely you will get used to it. So you bite it and it has the same function as a toothpaste. But imagine like I bought my own bottle, as you could see at the corner of the picture on your right hand side. I bring my own bottle and then I refill it. Almost I can refill like a 4 or 5 months consumption, that I don't have to waste another tubes as well. And also, I do really encourage to support a lot of secondhand shops, even though on any like secondhand, like a marketplace or any local shops that selling secondhand clothing or furnitures. Every time when you need to buy something new, think twice, asking yourself, do you really need it or you just want it? If you need it, go search other things that people might be like going to dispose of it or going to sell it. Buy secondhand. And also even yourself, if you are going to move your house, don't waste the things, don't dispose of it. Trying to sell everything online or even give it for free to the people who are in need. And also, like lots of people know that actually cotton bud is made out of plastic as well, but you still need it. So what could I do? I cannot just stop it. We cannot go to that extreme case, like don't use anything. So actually right now there's a lot of alternative solution coming up. Like for example, a reusable bud that can be used for up to 1,000 times. At the end of the day, of course, you still have to dispose of it when it's like going to the end of the life. But then it's like you just consume one thing instead of like 1,000 cotton buds. And I'm also using this reusable cleansing cloth to replace all the cotton pad. I'm sorry, it's a typo. Because as a girl, you have makeup, you cannot like stop using like a pad. But then we have something that's better that you can reuse it. I think one cloth I've been using it, I use it for at least a year already. You just push it in, you clean it every day or push it in a washing machine. You can actually replace a lot of plastic or single-use item. And the most important thing is like, okay, let's say, take an example, like today you're eating meat and I'm a vegan. I'm telling you, hey, being vegan is cool, good for the body, good for the health, but you cannot be like waking up in the one night, sleeping over time, and you can say, oh yeah, I can be vegan now. It's not like that. You need to have a time to switch it. And by still consuming some of the products that is necessary, but we need to think of the afterlife, that how can we reduce the negative impact to the environment, which is the most important. So when you consume a plastic, remember, look at the numbers behind, if you could recycle it or not. Also, when you buy it, think of it like, do you really need it or not? So let's say what we have been consuming at home, we have like we really segregate them. We collect them for 1 month or 2, and we will go to the community green station close by our area. So it's really nice. You clean it, dry it first. Don't forget that. And by number 1 to number 7, you can recycle every single plastics. So this one, as you can see, the biggest ever in there is the number 1 PET bottles. Every bottles, clean it first and you can recycle it. Even when you buy some fruits, there is some like polyform, you can recycle it as well. And this one is something that we could do it as an individual. And if only me doing it, we can't change the world. But everyone taking this action, we could. And also all the Tetra Pak, if you have no choice to consume it, for example, you drink soya milk or you buy like a tomato sauce, these are the things that we collected for like over like a month. And we go to district councillor to recycle it, and it will be collected by Mill to do some recycled paper and toilet paper. And also all the metal and like aluminum cans that we consume. For example, we have a cat, and we go for those waste paper and metal recycling company to recycle it as well. So we, as an individual, we try our best to take different actions to reduce the negative impact. And we, at least we spread the message to the friends and family and saying that, hey, we are doing the actions as well. Why don't you take it too? Because actually it's not that really difficult. And your action could influence the people around you, having a positive impact to the community.
Thank you, Devana. That is inspiring. I think everybody, or many of us, will know some of these things, but they're really important to just keep them in mind and the different options that we have. And meanwhile, we've got some more questions for you. So I think we can go through them before we end our talk. So Dana is asking whether you have done any sort of consumer survey on like how they dispose of your bags. So yes, ideally dispose in the water, but like what if somebody brings it home? How do you deal with that? Do you have any sort of communication towards the customer? How you try to ensure it's disposed of correctly?
Okay, thank you for the question. It's a really good question. In terms of communication, first thing first, we make sure that we deliver correct information to the brands that buying our bags. So on our social media, on our website, and even though like every single customer who buy our bags, actually I WhatsApp them, I email them, and like I need to make sure that they know how to dispose of the bag. And we are very happy that all our distinctive experts, they deliver the same communication on their social media to their end users. Let's say, for example, a fashion brand buying these transparent poly bag. They will be showcase the video and also the information to their end user, telling them that this is a water-soluble bag. Don't forget that. You can dissolve it into hot water. And also we receive a lot of like feedback. We will keep tracking with our distinctive actors and see like how your customer responds to the bags. They actually tell us that lots of their consumers, customers, they dissolve the bag after they receiving their clothing, and also film it and post it on their own social media or send it back to the brand saying that, hey, I took the distinctive action and thank you so much for choosing for us, because you are a brand. I buy your product, but at the same time, I buy your packaging. And then the manufacturers or brands, they are the one who make the choice, not the customers. So when they choose a better packaging, actually it giving the choice to a customer to go for better like afterlife products. So right now we kind of like try our best to do the job to keep on track on the good communication and to deliver all the brands and users, like when you receive the bag, what could you do with that?
Yeah, that's an interesting way of doing so. Maybe putting up a campaign and having your customers involved in a way, like putting up a competition or something that the customers can actually show, like how they dispose of this bag, and turn it into sort of like a game makes sense because people learn through gamification. So maybe that's also teaching them. But I believe that would be really hard to get the numbers actually, because individual customers of your already customers as a second line is quite difficult to collect probably. And also the reliability of the data might not be there because we're not with them in their home. So we don't really know how they dispose of it really.
Exactly. We cannot control what people could do at the end, but at least we try our best to spread the positive message that you can choose to end up this product alive in a couple of seconds instead of like just trashing it. But of course, at the end, if you trash it into a landfill by the microorganism and different like parameters, it will be biodegrade and it will degrade as well. But of course, the best way is like you could first, when you receive this back, don't trash it immediately, reuse it for a couple of times, As long as the day that you cannot reuse it, then you dispose of it.
Right. So Cora is asking, is the ink on the bag also non-toxic?
Correct. The ink is non-toxic. We did a test in Hong Kong to make sure that after dissolving the bag, the ink is also non-toxic. So there is no estrogen or chronic toxicants. So to make sure that it's not going to harmful to the nature. Because the most important thing is like after you dissolving the bag into water, the wastewater, all the domestic wastewater will go to the sewage plantation or sewage treatment facility. And there are lots of microorganisms, and by having 3 processing in that facility, one of the processes like we need to have microorganisms to biodegrade all the waste in the water and make sure that doing all the tests is okay, then they will admit to the ocean.
Right. We've got a very interesting question from Julia. He is asking, how do you manage the contamination with your bag when it mixes with other plastic bags? So what if somebody would dispose of it incorrectly into the plastic recycling bin, and then the whole batch of plastic, including your bag, which is not plastic, will go into the recycling station? So how does it affect the recyclability of the other plastic? Is there any way or to go around it? Are you planning to implement anything to prevent this? Does it even happen?
Thank you for the question. It's a really good question. First, we never put any like circles or numbers on our bag because it doesn't fall into any recycling program. It's not like traditional plastic. It's not any like from number 1 to number 7. It's not PPPE, HDPE, LDPE, none of them. So this one is called PVA. It's water soluble. So it means that if it goes to the recycling program, it will be dissolved because it has a very hot temperature in that. And after the hot temperature, definitely it will be dissolved. So this bag, it doesn't fall into any recycling bin. So we also try our best. At the end, we still try our best to tell people this is not going to be recycling bin. Don't recycle it, just boil the water and dissolve it. And if it's going to we don't have the exact report or we haven't do some testing yet, but we have been checking with different people who has been into a recycling program. This one would definitely not going into it. And if you go to Hong Kong government, those normal 3 colors bin, this one, it will be definitely taken out because the recycling bins on the street, they only recycle PET bottles. So only number 1 and number 2 bottles or plastic. So don't forget that. But if you talk about the other numbers, actually in that bins, it would not be recycled. But if you go to the community green station, they will segregate them. And also it depends on the number. If there is no number as this bag it is, they will take it out and they will not recycle it as well.
That's really insightful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So there's another question, interesting one. PVA is not a new product. Why US and EU do not use them in bag purpose?
Sorry, could you repeat again? Sorry.
PVA, the material that you're using for your bag, is not a new product, as you mentioned. Why is the US and the EU not using them for bags, for producing?
Okay, good questions. First, this one is definitely not a new material, as we mentioned earlier. It's back to 100 years ago. Why even ourselves have been questioning a lot why it has never been popular or being used as a bag. Actually, it's like because it has been used for a niche market. It has been used for industrial market. Talk about like those are big volume. For example, doing capsules, doing glue, or doing like laundry detergent pot or contact lenses. These are talk about volumes. And also the cost, it could be absorbed by the brands and the manufacturers because the raw material itself is already like 2-3 times more expensive than the plastic. So I do believe that they would never consider of using these as a plastic bags. And the second thing is like the manufacturing process, even though it's like you can have the same machine as manufacturing a plastic, but then there is some like modification and also the formulation is slightly different. And there is no one has been like No one is doing this and no one cared about it before. And so what we want to do is when we see this material that has been existing already, that someone is like capable to manufacturing it, we want to change the angle, like we have a choice. We need to make more people to accessible and make it accessible to general public. So right now what we are offering is like different than like traditional. You can go for like a manufacturer, they're asking you like 10,000, 20,000 or like a big amount. As a small brands, you can't do it. You cannot access to it. So what we are offering is like start from 200 pieces. You can buy it. You can take a small action of changing your packaging. And this is something that we want to change people's mindset and also raise the awareness and make it more people aware of it. So later on, more brands and even countries can use this better material. And for definitely, this will not stop us here. We want to develop more materials that is going to be plastic free and compostable, biodegradable.
Right. Got some interesting question from Julie. I think this is a good one. So we have not really talked about the temperature in which dissolve the plastic, your alternative plastic bag will dissolve in. So what is the minimum temperature for the hot water for the bag to dissolve? Is in the short enough duration? So say, could I just take a hot shower and place the bag in the shower and it will dissolve at the time when I'm taking shower?
Okay, what we suggest is like really, as you can see, I'm not sure you can see it here, we put it hot water soluble 80 degrees. So it means that once you boil the water, you put this bag, you take out the clothes, you put the bag into a big container, you pour the hot water, it talks about a couple of seconds. Why it talk about 80 degrees? Because when we do the manufacturing the polymer, we need to change the modification to like by the temperature trigger. So we make it 80 degrees that it will be, make it dissolve it that fast. But if you talk about normal like shower temperature, which is like 30 to 40 degrees, it will be very slow. It will be dissolved at the end, but it will be taking longer time because the temperature is the trigger.
Right. So I guess, sorry, you can't take the shower with the bag. It would need a lot of showers probably.
But this material can be like, we can modify it to be like dissolve it into 15 degrees, 20 degrees, or even 30 or 40. Because we have been thinking of using this material for the other application, for example, for soap wrapping. For example, the one that you were questioning about, let's say because we use bar soap, we don't use any plastic bottles for like shampoo and shower gel. So let's say all the soap, it always have to wrap up with a plastic unless you go to bulk buying. But then when you buy international brand or even local brand, it comes with a plastic. What if like that plastic, we can replace it? We change the temperature trigger, let's say like a shower, hot shower, 30 to 50 degrees. Once you open the shower, and then the plastic film will be dissolved. But this is something that we're still developing. We're still investigating into it because it takes a little bit of time, but we hopefully will come up with a better solution.
Right. And I think there was one question from Matt. I'm not sure I really understood it correctly, but maybe what Matt means, if you are here, then you can still clarify a little bit. But maybe the question is really, how can you use this material as well, maybe in the future, for creating plastic containers for like shampoo bottles or detergents, those liquid kind of materials? Is there a possibility of thinking of doing that? And then, what that would, or if not, then not, but like, is there any possibility of that?
Okay, I would say everything is possible. It just needs more money and time. Actually, we have been using this material to do injection molding. So right now you can see it's transparent, but we have been trying to make something that is heart shaped. So, but let's say when it comes to a technical things, when you do an injection molding for plastic, it's talk about 30 seconds. But this one will take 1.5 minutes. So I got a sample on hand. We can try, this is a demo, don't forget about the shape. So this is exactly the same material, which is, as you can see here as our invisible bag. It's also a water-soluble material. We have been changing a little bit of the formulation and trying to make a half shape like this. It's very hot, but it's also still dissolved in water, but they're taking a longer time. This is completely plastic free, but because of the COVID, we don't have that much resources on developing in it because of the injection molding. It really taking more time and resources. So we are still investigating into it. We're trying to develop more material that could replace the plastic. But when it comes to really R&D in Hong Kong, it takes time and money. And as Distinctive Action nowadays, we are running by a team of 3 founders. We are self-funding. We don't have investor yet. So to look into more options, this is definitely the way we want to go, but it needs some like accelerator to help.
Right. Fantastic. I think we're going to have to wrap up, but this was an excellent sharing session. I think we have gone through a lot of really, really interesting things today. And before we close though, I'd like to, could you please stop sharing your screen, Devana?
Sure.
Because we would like to share a survey that we would like to really ask you to take. We are partially funded by the Sustainable Development Fund in Hong Kong, and we really need your collaboration on filling in this very, very short survey form. We have just pasted the link in the chat group. Please spend those 2 minutes, 1 minute on just, you know, taking time to just fill in the questions. It's really easy just to click, choose the